Blake Richardson calls me on Thursday morning while I'm reviewing overnight crypto positions and tells me about this ayahuasca retreat in Marin County that's supposed to be life-changing. He's using words like consciousness expansion and spiritual breakthrough and accessing higher dimensional awareness, which immediately makes me want to hang up because Blake has the spiritual depth of a puddle and the intellectual sophistication of a motivational poster. "You have to experience this, Preston," he says. "It's not like anything you've ever done before. We're talking about direct access to universal consciousness. Complete ego dissolution. The ability to see reality as it actually is instead of through the filters of social conditioning and psychological programming." Blake made $47 million last year running pump and dump schemes on shitcoins, and now he thinks drinking plant juice in the woods with other tech millionaires is going to reveal the secrets of the universe. This is what happens when people who've never faced real adversity suddenly have access to unlimited recreational pharmaceutical experiences. They mistake chemical reactions for profound insights. But I'm curious despite myself. Not about the spiritual bullshit, obviously, but about the actual neurochemical effects of DMT on cognitive function and decision-making processes. I've read the clinical studies about psychedelics increasing neuroplasticity and creating new neural pathways that enhance creative problem-solving and pattern recognition. If there's a way to chemically optimize my already superior mental performance, that's worth investigating. How much does it cost? I ask. $5,000 for the weekend. That includes accommodation, all meals, integration coaching, and 3 ceremonial sessions with this shaman who studied with indigenous tribes in Peru for 15 years. $5,000 to drink plant tea with a bunch of tech bros who think spiritual enlightenment can be purchased like a software upgrade. The shaman is probably some white guy from Berkeley who spent 2 weeks in the Amazon and came back calling himself by some unpronounceable indigenous name that he uses to charge trust fund babies obscene amounts of money for guided hallucinations. When is it? I ask. This weekend. I can get you in if you're interested. It's very exclusive. Limited to 12 participants, all high-net-worth individuals who are serious about personal transformation and consciousness evolution. High-net-worth individuals who are serious about consciousness evolution. Right. A dozen millionaires who've run out of material possessions to buy and are now trying to purchase transcendent experiences like they're upgrading their Tesla software. The whole thing sounds like a parody of Silicon Valley excess disguised as spiritual practice. But my trading performance has been suboptimal lately, and I'm wondering if there might be something to the neuroplasticity research. Enhanced pattern recognition could give me significant advantages in market analysis and risk assessment. Even if the spiritual component is complete bullshit, the cognitive enhancement possibilities are worth exploring. Send me the details, I tell Blake. The retreat center is called Sacred Journey Integration, and it's located on 300 acres of organic farmland in the hills north of San Francisco. The website features photos of beautiful people in flowing white clothing meditating in gardens and embracing trees and generally looking like they've achieved some kind of pharmaceutical enlightenment that's just one ayahuasca session away from being available to you too. The facilitator is named Michael Whitefeather, which is obviously not the name his parents gave him when he was born in suburban Connecticut 35 years ago. His bio mentions extensive training with plant medicine teachers in South America and advanced certifications in holistic healing modalities and shamanic energy work, which are all ways of saying he's figured out how to monetize hippie bullshit for people who have more money than sense. I book the weekend and drive up Friday afternoon in the Cybertruck thinking about how much I'm going to hate every minute of this experience. The other participants will probably be the usual collection of tech entrepreneurs and crypto millionaires who've convinced themselves that consuming indigenous plant medicines makes them culturally sophisticated instead of just chemically dependent on exotic drugs. The retreat center looks exactly like the website photos. Rustic wooden buildings that were designed to look authentically primitive but probably cost more per square foot than most Manhattan condominiums. Meditation gardens with carefully arranged rocks and native plants that require full-time landscaping staff to maintain their natural appearance. The whole place screams, we spent millions of dollars to make this look like it cost nothing. The other participants are exactly what I expected. Tech bros in expensive athleisure were pretending to be spiritual seekers. A crypto day trader who made $200 million on Dogecoin and now thinks he's qualified to lecture people about the nature of reality. A venture capitalist who funded 3 unicorn startups and believes this makes him an expert on consciousness evolution. A pharmaceutical heiress who's never worked a day in her life but has strong opinions about authentic living and indigenous wisdom traditions. We gather in the main lodge for an orientation session where Michael Whitefeather explains the history and significance of ayahuasca in indigenous healing practices. He's wearing handwoven Peruvian textiles that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary and speaking in this affected spiritual voice that makes everything sound like a yoga commercial. Plant medicine has been used for thousands of years by indigenous peoples to access non-ordinary states of consciousness and commune with the spirit world, he tells us. What we're offering here is an opportunity to participate in this ancient tradition while maintaining the safety protocols and integration support that modern practitioners require. Ancient tradition. Right. He's talking about drinking hallucinogenic tea in a luxury retreat center with medical supervision and liability waivers as if it's the same thing as participating in actual indigenous ceremonies that involve real spiritual and cultural context instead of just recreational drug use disguised as consciousness exploration. The first ceremony is scheduled for Friday evening after a day of preparation that includes meditation, breath work, and setting intentions for our journey. I spend the afternoon sitting in the meditation garden pretending to contemplate my spiritual goals while actually reviewing market data on my phone and planning my trading strategy for next week. The pharmaceutical heiress sits next to me during the intention-setting circle and shares her deep desire to connect with her authentic self and release the trauma patterns that are blocking her from experiencing unconditional love. She inherited $400 million from a family pharmaceutical fortune built on manufacturing opioids that killed thousands of people, but apparently her biggest problem is not feeling spiritually fulfilled enough. What's your intention for this weekend, Preston? Michael Whitefeather asks when it's my turn to share. My intention is to experience whatever cognitive enhancement effects DMT might produce without having to pretend that chemical reactions are spiritual revelations or that indigenous plant medicines contain mystical wisdom that can't be explained through basic neuropharmacology. But saying that would ruin the carefully constructed atmosphere of authentic spiritual seeking that everyone else is performing. I'm interested in expanding my consciousness and accessing deeper levels of awareness, I tell the group, which is vague enough to sound spiritual while meaning absolutely nothing. The ceremony takes place in a circular building that's been constructed specifically for ayahuasca sessions. Mattresses arranged in a circle with blankets and pillows for each participant. Candles and incense and indigenous artwork that was probably purchased from fair trade importers who specialize in authentic spiritual ambience for wealthy white people. Michael Whitefeather changes into even more elaborate ceremonial clothing that looks like it was designed by someone who's seen too many movies about shamanic practices and not enough actual indigenous ceremonies. He lights sage and waves it around the room while chanting in what he claims is an ancient Shipibo language but sounds more like New Age gibberish mixed with random Spanish words. The ayahuasca itself is served in small ceramic cups that have been consecrated through some kind of blessing ritual that involves more chanting and sage burning. The liquid is dark brown and smells like rotting vegetation mixed with industrial solvents. Everyone drinks it ceremonially like we're participating in communion instead of consuming Schedule I controlled substances for recreational purposes. Remember to surrender to the experience, Michael Whitefeather tells us. Don't try to control what happens. Let the plant teacher show you what you need to see. The plant teacher. As if a mixture of psychoactive compounds has consciousness and intentionality instead of just producing predictable neurochemical effects that can be explained through basic pharmacology. But everyone nods solemnly like he's shared profound wisdom instead of anthropomorphizing a drug experience. It takes about 20 minutes for the effects to begin. First, there's a strange metallic taste in my mouth and a feeling of nausea that makes me wonder if I'm about to spend the next 4 hours vomiting into a bucket like some kind of spiritual boot camp hazing ritual. Then the visual distortions start. Geometric patterns overlaying my normal vision. Colors becoming more saturated and intense. The other participants are already making various sounds of spiritual ecstasy. The pharmaceutical heiress is crying and talking about connecting with her inner child. The crypto trader is laughing maniacally and announcing that he can see the mathematical structures underlying all of reality. The venture capitalist is curled up in a fetal position claiming to be experiencing his own birth. I close my eyes and wait for the profound consciousness expansion that's supposed to reveal the deepest truths about existence and my place in the universe. Instead, I see spreadsheets. But not ordinary spreadsheets. These are living, breathing documents that pulse with their own internal logic and mathematical beauty. Endless rows and columns of financial data scrolling past my closed eyelids in perfect formation, like armies of numbers marching toward inevitable victory. The columns stretch infinitely upward and downward, each cell containing not just numbers but entire universes of possibility. Column A shows Bitcoin prices cascading like a golden waterfall from $73,000 down to $12,000 and then exploding back up to $180,000 in a fractal pattern that repeats at every scale. Column B contains Ethereum prices dancing in perfect synchronization with mathematical sequences I've never seen before but somehow understand completely. The cells themselves are not static. They breathe and pulse and transform, showing me not just current values but every possible future permutation simultaneously. I can see through the numbers into the underlying reality of what they represent, fear and greed and hope and desperation all crystallized into pure mathematical truth. Each price movement is a human emotion made quantifiable, a psychological state converted into actionable data. And then the spreadsheet begins to speak to me in a language of pure finance. Not words but direct transmission of knowledge. The formula bar at the top of the screen glows with equations that contain the secrets of the universe, equals sum, human_weakness plus market inefficiency plus information asymmetry, leverage greed equals infinite wealth. I watch columns of data perform complex calculations in real time, showing me exactly how to exploit the psychological patterns that govern market behavior. Column C reveals the precise timing of when retail investors capitulate and sell their positions at the bottom. Column D shows the exact moments when institutional FOMO drives prices beyond rational valuations. Column E calculates the optimal entry and exit points for maximum profit extraction. The plant teacher apparently wants to show me the mathematical structure underlying all human behavior. Every emotional impulse has been reduced to variables in a massive equation that predicts exactly how people will react to different market stimuli. Fear has a coefficient of 2.7. Greed multiplies by factors of 4.2 during bull markets and 0.3 during bear markets. Hope adds exactly 15% to any asset valuation regardless of underlying fundamentals. The spreadsheet expands into 3 dimensions and I'm flying through it like Neo in the Matrix, except instead of green code cascading down the screen it's financial data revealing the hidden architecture of global wealth distribution. I can see every bank account, every portfolio, every cryptocurrency wallet connected in this vast network of numerical relationships that pulse with their own organic rhythm. Bitcoin price charts morph into elaborate geometric mandalas that spin and rotate in perfect harmony, each candlestick transforming into sacred geometry that reveals deeper patterns about market psychology and mass behavior. The red candles become flowering fractals of human suffering, beautiful in their mathematical precision. The green candles explode into crystalline structures that represent pure accumulated power. Moving averages flow like rivers of liquid gold across the charts, carrying information about future price movements that becomes clear as soon as I stop trying to analyze it and just allow myself to feel the data flow through my consciousness. The 50-day moving average whispers secrets about optimal position sizing. The 200-day moving average hums with knowledge about long-term trend identification. Fibonacci retracements appear as golden spirals that stretch across multiple dimensions, showing me not just price targets but the underlying harmonic frequencies that govern all financial markets. Every 0.618 retracement level pulses with energy that corresponds to specific human psychological breaking points. Every 1.618 extension reveals the exact moment when euphoria transforms into mania. The sacred plant medicine is revealing that the entire global financial system is just a massive biological organism, and I'm seeing it from the perspective of a perfectly evolved predator. Every market participant is a cell in this organism, and I can see exactly how to manipulate the flow of nutrients, money, through the system to maximize my own growth while ensuring the organism continues to function efficiently. Instead of connecting with universal consciousness, I'm downloading the complete operating manual for human financial behavior. I can see individual trades happening in real time across every major exchange, but more than that, I can see the emotional and psychological states of the people making those trades. Their hopes and fears are visible as colored patterns surrounding each transaction. A day trader in Seoul closes a losing Bitcoin position and his desperation manifests as this dark purple cloud that I can smell and taste. A pension fund manager in London increases his allocation to tech stocks and his cautious optimism appears as pale green geometric shapes that vibrate at a frequency I can feel in my bones. A crypto influencer in Miami pumps a shitcoin to his followers and his predatory excitement becomes this brilliant orange flame that makes me want to applaud his technique. The visions become more complex and detailed. I'm inside a three-dimensional model of the global economy where every asset class is represented by a different landscape. Stocks are mountains that rise and fall based on earnings reports and economic cycles. Bonds are vast plains that stretch to the horizon, occasionally disturbed by interest rate changes that create earthquakes. Commodities are oceans with waves driven by supply and demand imbalances that I can predict by reading the currents. Cryptocurrencies exist in a separate dimension that overlays the traditional financial world like a translucent membrane. I can see through this membrane and watch how digital assets are beginning to colonize and replace older forms of value storage and transmission. Bitcoin appears as this massive black hole that's slowly absorbing all other forms of money through pure gravitational force. Ethereum manifests as a vast network of interconnected neural pathways that pulse with smart contract executions. And I understand, with perfect clarity, that I'm not just observing this system, I'm designed to exploit it. My consciousness is perfectly calibrated to identify inefficiencies and capitalize on them. Every synapse in my brain fires in harmony with market movements. My nervous system processes risk and reward calculations at superhuman speed. I am the evolutionary result of millions of years of natural selection optimized for wealth accumulation in complex financial environments. The ayahuasca shows me my own portfolio, but not as numbers on a screen. My investments appear as this vast crystalline structure that grows and evolves according to mathematical laws I've never consciously understood but have always intuitively followed. Each position is connected to every other position through golden threads that represent correlations and hedge ratios and rebalancing algorithms. My Bitcoin holdings manifest as this pulsing core of pure energy that anchors the entire structure. My Ethereum positions branch out like neural networks, constantly adapting and optimizing. My traditional stock investments form the stable foundation that supports more speculative positions higher up in the crystal formation. My real estate appears as solid geometric shapes that provide ballast during market turbulence. But the most beautiful part is seeing how my portfolio responds to global events in real time. When the Federal Reserve announces policy changes, I watch energy flow through the crystalline structure, automatically rebalancing positions to maintain optimal risk-adjusted returns. When geopolitical tensions increase, the structure contracts and consolidates around more defensive positions. When market euphoria peaks, it expands and takes on more aggressive configurations. I realize I'm not just managing investments, I'm conducting a symphony of human emotions and mathematical relationships that spans the entire planet. Every trade I execute sends ripples through this vast network of interconnected financial relationships. Every position I take influences the behavior of thousands of other market participants who adjust their strategies in response to information I help generate. The plant medicine reveals that money isn't just a medium of exchange, it's a form of crystallized human attention and energy. Every dollar represents time and effort and focus that someone invested in productive activity. By accumulating money, I'm literally concentrating human life force into forms that I can direct toward whatever purposes I choose. This is why I feel so energized by trading and portfolio management. I'm not just moving numbers around on screens, I'm manipulating the fundamental life energy of the entire human species. Every successful trade transfers a portion of someone else's concentrated life force into my control. Every market inefficiency I exploit represents energy that I can harvest from the collective human organism. The visions become even more intense and detailed. I can see the entire global supply chain as a massive circulatory system, with goods and services and information flowing along predetermined pathways that I can map and predict and manipulate. Every container ship crossing the Pacific carries not just physical cargo but encoded information about future price movements in dozens of commodity markets. I watch inflation spread through the system like a virus, starting with raw materials and propagating through manufacturing and distribution and retail until it finally shows up in consumer prices months later. But I can see it coming from the beginning, and I know exactly which assets will benefit and which will suffer as the inflationary energy moves through different sectors of the economy. The ayahuasca spirits are showing me that the entire concept of economic cycles is just a natural rhythm that can be predicted and exploited if you understand the underlying harmonics. Bull markets and bear markets pulse with the same mathematical precision as heartbeats or breathing patterns. Recessions and expansions follow seasonal cycles that correspond to collective human psychological states. I can see exactly when the next recession will begin, not through conventional economic analysis but by observing the energy patterns that flow through the global financial organism. The system is already showing signs of fatigue and overextension that will manifest as a major correction 18 months from now. But I also see exactly which assets will outperform during the downturn and which sectors will lead the subsequent recovery. The vision expands to show me the entire history of money and finance as a single evolutionary process. Gold and silver and other precious metals were the first attempt to create portable stores of value. Paper currency was the next evolutionary step, allowing for more efficient transfer of purchasing power across time and space. Digital payments and electronic banking were further refinements that increased transaction speed and reduced friction. Cryptocurrencies represent the latest evolutionary adaptation, money that exists purely as information and can be programmed with complex behaviors and attributes. But I can see that this is still just the beginning. The next phase will involve financial instruments that are fully integrated with artificial intelligence and can make autonomous decisions about optimization and allocation and risk management. I realize that I'm perfectly positioned to benefit from this evolutionary process because my own psychology has evolved to match the increasing sophistication and complexity of financial systems. My brain processes market information with the same efficiency that other people use for social relationships or creative expression. I am the human equivalent of a cryptocurrency, optimized for value accumulation and resistant to traditional forms of analysis and regulation. The plant medicine shows me my trading strategy not as a series of conscious decisions but as a biological process as natural and inevitable as digestion or respiration. When I identify market inefficiencies, I'm not thinking, I'm responding to environmental stimuli with behaviors that have been refined through years of successful adaptation to financial ecosystems. Every position I take, every risk I manage, every profit I realize is just the visible manifestation of deeper evolutionary processes that have optimized my nervous system for wealth accumulation in complex market environments. The ayahuasca is revealing that I don't trade markets, I am a market. My consciousness is perfectly calibrated to detect and exploit opportunities for energy transfer within the global financial organism. The visions continue for what feels like hours but might be minutes or days. Time becomes irrelevant when you're experiencing the mathematical structure that underlies all economic activity. I see decades of market cycles compressed into moments of pure pattern recognition. I understand the precise psychological mechanisms that drive bubbles and crashes and recoveries with the same clarity that other people understand language or music. And through it all, the spreadsheets keep expanding and evolving, showing me more and more sophisticated strategies for extracting value from human psychological weaknesses and behavioral predictabilities. The plant spirits are generous teachers, revealing secrets about market manipulation and information asymmetry and regulatory arbitrage that would take years to discover through conventional analysis. By the time the visions begin to fade, I've received what amounts to a PhD in applied financial psychology delivered through direct consciousness download from indigenous plant medicine teachers who apparently understand capitalism better than any business school professor or economic theorist. The sacred ayahuasca has revealed that the entire global financial system is just a more complex version of the same resource competition patterns that govern all biological organisms. I am not separate from the market. I am the market's most highly evolved expression, perfectly adapted to thrive in an environment of infinite complexity and constant change. The plant medicine has shown me that accumulating wealth isn't just a personal goal, it's my biological destiny and evolutionary purpose. Oh my God, the pharmaceutical heiress is saying. I can see my grandmother's spirit. She's telling me that everything is connected and that love is the only thing that matters. Her grandmother probably spent her final years in some expensive assisted living facility wondering why her granddaughter never visited despite having enough money to buy the entire nursing home chain. But now the ayahuasca is letting her project whatever narrative she needs to feel better about her family relationships. I'm seeing my own grandmother too, but she's not delivering messages about universal love. She's sitting at her kitchen table in Greenwich explaining why proper asset allocation requires rebalancing portfolios quarterly to maintain target percentages across different asset classes. Even my hallucinated ancestors are giving me financial advice instead of spiritual insights. The crypto trader is now claiming he can communicate telepathically with everyone in the room and that we're all manifestations of a single cosmic consciousness experiencing itself subjectively through individual human perspectives. He's basically reciting Alan Watts quotes he probably read on Instagram while believing he's channeling universal wisdom directly from the source. Preston, he says, looking directly at me with pupils dilated to the point where his irises have almost disappeared. I can see your energy field. It's like this massive geometric structure made of pure mathematics. You're not just a person, you're like a living equation that's constantly calculating the optimal path through probability space. A living equation. That's actually not a terrible description of my psychological profile, but I doubt the ayahuasca revealed that insight. More likely he's just projecting his own understanding of my personality through a filter of pharmaceutical mysticism that makes ordinary observations sound like profound revelations. Michael Whitefeather is walking around the room checking on everyone and occasionally playing this wooden flute that sounds like a dying bird. He stalks next to my mattress and asks how I'm doing in his fake spiritual voice that makes everything sound like a meditation app commercial. I'm experiencing some interesting visual phenomena, I tell him, which is accurate without being specific enough to reveal that my profound spiritual journey consists mainly of hallucinated financial documents and conversations with dead relatives about portfolio diversification strategies. The plant is showing you exactly what you need to see, he says. Trust the process and allow yourself to receive whatever gifts the medicine wants to give you. The gifts the medicine wants to give me apparently include a detailed analysis of various cryptocurrency market cycles and an extensive review of my monthly expense categories broken down by tax-deductible versus personal expenditures. This is either the most practical spiritual experience in history or my brain is so fundamentally oriented toward financial optimization that even psychedelic drugs can't redirect my consciousness toward anything resembling transcendent awareness. Around hour 2, things get more intense. The visual distortions become more complex and the boundary between internal and external experience starts to break down in ways that are genuinely disorienting. But instead of experiencing ego dissolution or unity consciousness, I'm having incredibly detailed visions about market inefficiencies and arbitrage opportunities in various cryptocurrency exchanges. The ayahuasca is showing me exactly how to exploit price differences between different trading platforms to generate risk-free profits through automated trading algorithms. I'm seeing the entire global financial system as this vast interconnected network of opportunities for extraction and manipulation. It's like getting a PhD in financial crime directly downloaded into my consciousness by indigenous plant spirits. The veil is lifting, announces the venture capitalist, who's now sitting upright and gesturing at invisible entities that only he can see. I can perceive the true nature of reality beyond the illusions of the material world. The true nature of reality, according to my ayahuasca visions, is that most people are financially illiterate and emotionally weak enough to be manipulated through carefully designed psychological triggers that exploit their cognitive biases and social insecurities. The plant medicine is revealing that human beings are essentially biological machines that can be programmed through the right combination of chemical and informational inputs. This is probably not what Michael Whitefeather had in mind when he talked about consciousness expansion and spiritual transformation. But the drug is definitely expanding my understanding of human psychology and social dynamics in ways that could be extremely profitable if applied correctly to trading strategies and client relationship management. The pharmaceutical heiress is now claiming she's communicating with the collective unconscious of all humanity and receiving messages about healing the planet through conscious consumerism and sustainable luxury brands. She's basically having advertisements disguised as spiritual revelations, which makes sense given that her entire worldview has been shaped by marketing campaigns designed to make wealthy people feel good about their consumption habits. By hour 3, I'm receiving what can only be described as a comprehensive business plan for a new cryptocurrency that would be specifically designed to exploit the psychological vulnerabilities of retail investors through gamification mechanics and social media integration. The ayahuasca spirits are apparently very interested in fintech innovation and behavioral economics. The other participants are all reporting profound spiritual breakthroughs and life-changing insights about the nature of love and consciousness and their purpose in the universe. Meanwhile, I'm getting detailed instructions for implementing wash trading strategies and manipulating social media sentiment to create artificial price momentum in various digital assets. "How are you doing, Preston?" asks the crypto trader during one of the periods when everyone's sitting up and sharing their experiences with the group. "I'm receiving some very practical guidance," I tell him, which is completely accurate while being vague enough to fit with everyone else's narrative about receiving wisdom from plant teachers and spirit guides. "That's beautiful, man," he says. "The medicine always gives us exactly what we need, even if it's not what we expected." What I needed, apparently, was a graduate-level education in financial fraud and psychological manipulation delivered through hallucinogenic visions featuring my deceased relatives and various geometric patterns that resolve into market charts and tax forms. This is either the most materialistic spiritual experience in recorded history or evidence that my consciousness is so thoroughly optimized for wealth accumulation that even consciousness-expanding drugs can't redirect it toward anything resembling conventional mysticism. The final hour involves what Michael Whitefeather calls integration work, where we're supposed to process the insights we've received and begin incorporating them into our daily lives. Everyone else is talking about how they've been transformed by direct contact with universal love and cosmic consciousness. I'm taking notes about cryptocurrency arbitrage strategies and social media manipulation techniques. The plant showed me that my purpose is to use my wealth to heal the world through conscious entrepreneurship and regenerative business practices, says the pharmaceutical heiress, apparently having forgotten that her family fortune comes from manufacturing addictive opioids that destroyed millions of lives. "I saw the mathematical structure underlying all of reality," announces the crypto trader. "We're all just information patterns in an infinite computational matrix, and consciousness is the universe experiencing itself subjectively through individual nodes of awareness." "What about you, Preston?" asks Michael Whitefeather. "What did the medicine show you?" "The medicine showed me exactly how to exploit human psychology for profit while maintaining plausible deniability about my intentions and methods. It revealed comprehensive strategies for accumulating wealth through the systematic manipulation of other people's cognitive biases and emotional weaknesses. It provided detailed instructions for various forms of financial crime that would be virtually impossible to prosecute successfully. But saying that would probably violate the positive atmosphere of spiritual transformation that everyone else is committed to maintaining. I received guidance about optimizing my decision-making processes and accessing more efficient approaches to problem solving, I tell the group, which is technically accurate while being meaningless enough to sound spiritual. "That's wonderful," says Michael Whitefeather. "The plant often works through practical guidance rather than purely mystical experiences. Indigenous peoples have always understood that spiritual insight and practical wisdom are intimately connected." Indigenous peoples. Right. I doubt the original users of ayahuasca were receiving visions about cryptocurrency trading strategies and social media marketing techniques. But then again, maybe they were getting similarly practical guidance about hunting and agriculture and resource management, just filtered through the cultural and technological context of their historical moment. The ceremony ends around 3 a.m. with everyone sitting in a circle sharing gratitude for the experience and committing to integrating their insights into their daily lives. I express appropriate appreciation for the opportunity to participate in this ancient healing tradition while privately calculating how much money I can make from the business strategies I received during my pharmaceutical vision quest. Driving back to the city Sunday morning, I review my notes and realize that the ayahuasca experience was actually extremely valuable, just not in the way that Michael Whitefeather or any of the other participants would understand or approve of. Instead of spiritual transformation, I received practical education in advanced financial manipulation techniques that could potentially generate hundreds of millions in additional profits over the next few years. The other participants probably went home believing they'd been transformed by contact with cosmic consciousness and plant spirit teachers. I went home with detailed plans for several new forms of white-collar crime and a much clearer understanding of how to exploit the psychological vulnerabilities that make people susceptible to financial fraud. $5,000 for a weekend-long masterclass in wealth extraction disguised as spiritual retreat. That might be the best investment I've made all year, even if it wasn't exactly the consciousness expansion that was advertised in the marketing materials. Sometimes the most profound revelations come in forms you don't expect from sources you wouldn't normally trust. Sometimes spiritual medicine delivers practical wisdom that's more valuable than mystical insight. And sometimes the universe provides exactly what you need, even if what you need is advanced training in sophisticated criminal techniques rather than connection to universal love and cosmic consciousness. The ayahuasca definitely expanded my awareness. Just not in any direction that would make Michael Whitefeather or his clients particularly comfortable if they understood what I'd actually learned during my journey to the spirit world.